Welcome to Creepypasta Theater, a show where we explore the strange world of creepypasta. Join us as we hear tales best left untold, travel roads best left unexplored, and see sights best left unseen. Today's story: The Scratching in the Woods. Author unknown. This story can be found on creepypasta.fandom.com and is protected by Creative Commons license. The forest behind our property was always just there. A sprawling ancient expanse of oak and pine that my father called the Old Breath, because on still nights the wind through the burrows sounded like a giant slumbering thing. We were told not to go too deep, the usual parental cautions about getting lost or encountering a bear. But the real rule, the one whispered after the lights were out, was simple. Never be in the woods after dark. My name is Eli, and I was 16 the summer the scratching started. It began subtly, a sound so faint you'd mistake it for a branch tickling my window screen. But it wasn't at the house. It was a sound that carried on the night air, emanating from the heart of the Old Breath. It was a dry, methodical scraping, like a dog digging at a hard patch of earth, but sharper, more deliberate. It had a rhythm to it. Scritch, scritch, scritch. Pause. Scritch, scritch, scritch. That got under your skin. The first few nights, we dismissed it. A persistent raccoon, maybe? A particularly industrious woodpecker with a terrible sense of time? But it didn't stop. It went on for hours, just after sunset until the first hint of dawn painted the sky. The sound had a strange quality to it. It seemed to bypass the ears and vibrate directly into the teeth. A low-grade hum underpinning the sharp scratches. My older sister, Sarah, was the first to crack. "It sounds like it's trying to get in," she'd mummer, pulling her knees to her chest on the couch. Dad would laugh it off, a hollow sound that didn't reach his eyes. "Nothing out there but trees and dirt, sweetheart." But the local animals knew better. Old Man Henderson's hound dogs, who used to bay at the moon, now cowered silently in their kennels after dark. The deer, normally bold enough to graze at the tree line, vanished completely. The forest had become a place of silence, broken only by that incessant, unnatural scratching. Curiosity, as it so often does, eventually overpowered fear. My best friend, Mark, and I decided to investigate. We were armed with flashlights, a pocket knife, and the invincible arrogance of teenagers. We waited until my parents were asleep, slipped out my window, and headed towards the tree line. The moment we stepped under the canopy, the world changed. The summer night was warm, but a deep, penetrating cold clung in the air in the woods. The moment we stepped under the canopy, the world changed. The summer night was warm, but a deep, penetrating cold clung to the air in the woods. Our flashlights cut weak cones of light through an oppressive darkness that seemed to swallow sound. The scratching was louder here, much louder. It echoed, making it impossible to pinpoint. It seemed to come from everywhere at once, from the ground, the trees, even the air itself. We followed the sound for what felt like an hour, the beam of my flashlight dancing over gnarled roots and thick ferns. The forest floor was wrong. Patches of earth were scraped bare, not by animal hooves, but in perfect geometric circles where the moss and topsoil had been cleanly removed. The bark on several trees was scarred with the same kind of marks. Not the random clawing of a bear, but intricate, spiraling patterns etched deep into the wood. The air smelled of ozone and damp clay. The scratching grew so loud it was almost deafening, the humming vibration setting my feelings on edge. We crouched behind a fallen log, peering into a small clearing. And that's where we saw it. It wasn't an animal. It was a figure, tall and impossibly thin, its limbs joined all wrong, like a stick insect. It was crouched over one of the bare circles of earth, its back to us, its skin, if it was skin, was a gray, molted texture that seemed to absorb the moonlight. Its head was elongated, and it was working with hands that possessed far too many long, bony fingers. They ended in hard, chitinous points, and with a terrifying, focused precision, it was dragging them across the hard-packed dirt. Scritch, scritch, scritch. It wasn't just digging. It was carving. As it moved, intricate lines and symbols were being incised into the earth with machine-like accuracy. The symbols pulsed with a faint, sickly green light that seemed to emanate from the dirt itself. Mark let out a choked gasp. The scratching stopped. The thing's head rotated a full 180 degrees on its necklace torso. It had no eyes, just deep black pits that held no reflection. Its face was a nightmare of sharp angles with a slit for a mouth. A sound came out of it, not from the mouth, but from a projection that seemed to form directly in my mind. It was a language of static, of broken glass and screaming metal, and yet I understood its intent. It was a question, a demand, and a threat, all at once.
Interference?
We ran. We didn't look back. We crashed through the undergrowth, thorns tearing at our clothes, the sound of our own terrified screams swallowed by the suffocating silence of the woods. The scratching didn't follow us, but the feeling of being watched, of being known, clung to us all the way home. We told my parents everything. They didn't believe us. They thought we'd gotten spooked by an owl. Maybe smoked something we shouldn't have. But the next day, the sheriff found something that changed our minds. Old man Henderson was gone, vanished from his locked house. The only thing out of place was his back door, which was scarred from top to bottom with deep, parallel grooves, as if something with immense strength and sharp claws had tried to pry its way in. The scratching stopped for a week. The town held its breath. We installed extra locks, bought stronger lights. A sense of uneasy calm settled over us. We were fools. It returned on the 7th night, but this time it wasn't just one source. It was dozens, hundreds. The entire forest perimeter around our small town echoed with the sound. Scritch, scritch, scratch. It was a symphony of excavation, a horrifying chorus of digging and carving. Then the lights in the sky came. Silent black triangles that blotted out the stars hovering just above the treetops. That's when the power died. Phones, radios, everything silent. We were cut off. The real horror began after that. People started reporting things moving in the shadows outside their homes. Not animals. Things that walked on 2 legs but moved with a jerky, unnatural grace. Pets disappeared. Then people. You'd hear a frantic scratching at your door, a window, and then a scream that was cut off with terrifying suddenness. They weren't just killing us. They were preparing us. I saw Miss Gable from the post office the morning after a particularly loud night of scratching. She was standing in her front yard, perfectly still, staring at the woods. When I called her name, she turned. Her eyes were vacant, her mouth slack. A thin line of black, oily fluid trickled from her ear. On her forearm, fresh and raw, was one of those spiraling symbols carved into her skin. The scratching, we finally understood, was the key. It wasn't a byproduct of their activity. It was the activity. The sound, the vibration. It was a tool. It was a frequency that rewired the brain, that softened the mind for extraction. It carved their symbols not just into the dirt and trees, but into our very neural pathways, turning people into empty vessels, broadcasting a signal they could home in on. My family fortified our house as best we could. We boarded up the windows, pushed furniture against the doors, but we all knew it was futile. You can't keep out a sound. Last night, the scratching started on our roof. Slow, deliberate. Scritch, scritch, scratch. Then at the front door. Then my window. It's all around us now. The hum is so strong my vision is blurring. My dad is sitting in the corner, rocking back and forth, his hands over his ears, whispering, "The old breath. The old breath is awake." Sarah isn't Sarah anymore. She's standing by the boarded-up window, tracing one of the symbols on the wood with her finger. She's humming their tune. She turned to me a moment ago, her eyes black and depthless, and she smiled a sharp, impossible smile. "They're almost done with the grand design, Eli," she said, her voice a distorted echo. "The canvas is almost prepared." The scratching at the door has stopped. Now, it started on the inside of the door. Something is in the house with us. My flashlight is dying. The batteries won't last much longer. I can hear my father starting to scream, but it's cut short, replaced by a wet, gurgling sound, and then silence. The scratching is right outside my bedroom door now. It's so loud. The hum is in my bones, in my teeth, carving its way into my thoughts. It's getting hard to remember what things were like before. It's getting hard to remember my own name. It's not a bad sound, really. When you stop fighting it, it's almost beautiful. A perfect, orderly pattern. A promise of silence. A promise of becoming part of something vast and cold and ancient. The door is starting to splinter. I think I'll just put the flashlight down. I think I'll just listen to the scratching. It's almost comforting. Scritch, scritch, scratch, scritch, scritch, scratch. You have been listening to a presentation of Point of Insanity Game Studio. Visit us on the web at www.poigamestudio.com. Follow me on most social media sites at POI Game Studio. And check out my music channel on YouTube at Al Seeger Music.